What's up, guys? Today we're going to be checking out the NexiGo Aurora Pro MKII. And a thanks to NexiGo for sending this out for me to review. All right, so as you can see right off the bat that the NexiGo does not have a smart operating system. So there is no OS like Google TV or Fire TV or anything like that. This is just a straight up projector. Same thing that you would get with something like a Sony or a JVC or an Epson, where they don't have any smart features at all. So if you need smart features like streaming services, you will need to get something like a Fire TV stick or an Apple TV. That being said, here on the top bar, we have the home page. You can scroll over to the settings. This will give you your weather. You can choose your input selection here. We've got your Bluetooth menu. These are just your quick settings. We've got your Wi-Fi menu. And then let's go back to the home screen. So here we've got your settings, which we'll dive into really quick. You've got your network, Bluetooth, your display, audio, help, apps, and then input source. So under apps, we have your browser and then a file manager. So if you wanted to put a USB stick into this and access some of your files, you could do that here from within the file manager. But let's check out the projector's relevant settings. So let's check out display first. So here we've got your image parameters. We've got a few different image presets. We've got Cinema Pro, Custom, which will allow you to adjust the brightness, contrast, saturation, and sliders, such as that. We've got the brightest picture preset, Standard, Cinema Home, and then back to Cinema Pro. Scrolling down to the bottom, we have the advanced color management. So here you can adjust your primary colors. So if you do have proper calibration tools, you can go ahead and do that in this section here. And then here we've got a few different color temperatures. We've got warm 2, warm 1, standard, and then warm 3. And then the last option here is restore everything back to its default settings. Next setting is your keystone correction. You can do fine adjustments, 4 points, 8 points, and then reset. So if you are familiar, let's say you pick a different point, and then you can move to each point and then move in either direction. So you can see as I'm tapping up, the lower left-hand corner is moving upwards. So if you cannot get this perfectly squared up with your screen and you're overshooting it, then you can adjust it. Obviously, the best way to do this is to not use any digital keystone correction for the best image possible. And then for focus, by tapping on left and right, you can adjust the focus of the projector. And as far as focus uniformity, the top edge corners do look nearly identical to the bottom corners. So typically on some of these UST projectors, the upper corners will look a little bit softer. These ones are nearly exactly the same. I will say it's a touch softer on the top, but otherwise it's close enough. I'd say it's about 95% as good as what's on the bottom. Then here we've got your MEMC. So if you want to get that smooth soap opera effect, you want to get rid of some of that judder, you can change your MEMC settings there. I'm personally not a fan of it, so I'm going to keep it off for the rest of this video. Then here we've got your projection mode. We've got desktop front mount. We can mount this on the ceiling. You can do ceiling, rear projection mount, and then we can go back to normal. And for 1080p display, if you want to keep 4K upscaling on, you will have to keep this off. Otherwise, if you turn this on, this will resort back to its native resolution of 1080p. Remember, this is a native 1080p projector, but by using upscaling, this will give you the full 4K resolution. So be sure that you keep this off to get that 4K resolution. Under Dolby Vision, you can select your screen size and then your screen gain. I am projecting on a 150-inch Screen Innovations Maestro 2, and the screen does have a gain of 1.1. Under boot source, you can choose where this will start up once you turn on the projector. You can choose either HDMI 1, 2, 3, or you can go back to the main page. Under image adjustment, I have this at 100% since I do have this squared up with my screen. But let's drop this down to 93%. By doing that, you can go down to adjust position, and then you can move this around. So if you have this in anything less than 100%, you can digitally move the image around. Remember, you're digitally moving the image, you're not adjusting vertical or horizontal lens shift. This is an ultra short throw, so it does not have that feature. This is all done digitally. Then to go back to default, just make sure you bring this back up to 100%. The next section that we are going to check out is the audio section. So touchstones, you can turn this on or off, which will play a little tone every time you do a selection on the projector. Power on ringtone, this will make a little chime or a little noise when you power the projector on. Audio mode, you have a few different audio presets. Right now I've got this on Dolby Cinema. You can choose custom where you get 5 different EQ bands. You've got Cinema, Standard, Gaming, and then back to Dolby Cinema. For Dolby Audio, you can turn this on or off. This will give you a pseudo surround effect from the projector's speakers. And then you can swap your left and right channels. This will be useful if you're either ceiling mounting it or if you're using this in a rear projection setup. For audio output, you can choose between the projector speakers, the optical output, HDMI EARC, or you can use headphones. All right, now while watching content, by hitting on the menu button on the remote control, this will bring up your image parameters. So under this section here, you could choose between your picture presets such as Dolby Vision Bright, Dolby Vision Dark, and then Dolby Vision Vivid. This is, of course, dependent on if you are watching Dolby Vision material. And then you do have some extra settings down here as well. So you do have the 2-point white balance calibration. Again, if you do have the proper calibration tools, you can adjust these settings. Also the same thing with the black balance as well. We've got your gamma selection, EOTF, MEMC, which we saw earlier. Dynamic contrast control, we have off, low, medium, and then high. Scene adaptive gamma, we have off, low, medium, and then high. Digital noise reduction, and then you can restore everything back to its default preset position. Then the biggest thing about this projector is going to be the Scene Adapt engine. So this, I believe, is the first UST to have a dynamic iris. I'm not sure. I don't believe any other UST has a dynamic iris. But here we have a few different options here. We've got off, iris bright, iris light, and then under custom, you can either open the iris all the way wide or you can stop it all the way down, which is going to make the image a lot dimmer, but also enhance your black levels. And then of course, if you want to go with the dynamic iris, you can choose between the iris bright, which will give you the brightest image, and then iris light will work a little bit less by enhancing black levels a bit more. So you'll have to choose between these two to see which one works best for you. And then SAE, this also has laser dimming as well. We've got low, medium, high, and then ultra. So by choosing a combination of the dynamic iris control as well as the laser dimming control, you can fine tune this as perfectly as you can, get this to work with your specific screen. So this might take a little bit of trial and error on your part to find the best image possible that will work for you. Then here we've got low latency mode for you gamers out there. You can turn that on and off. This does support 3D. We've got your HDMI info. You can choose between 24p, 50p. You can keep it off or you can turn that on auto. But by turning this on, this is going to disable the low latency mode, MEMC, and then 3D. Another option we have is the aspect ratio. So you can choose between automatic. We've got 4:3, 16:9, 16:10, 21:9, 32:9, 235:1, and then you can keep this on native. I think for most folks, you're probably going to keep this on automatic. And lastly, here we have the audio settings.
has really struggled with this car, but they brought an upgrade package this weekend. See if it makes a difference as Hayes attacks Perez in the Red Bull.
The audio sounds pretty good from the inbuilt speakers. It's kind of like having a soundbar. Now, without the Dolby upmixing turned on, you can tell that the sound is coming from the projector itself. Turning Dolby on will make the soundstage a lot bigger up front. You won't hear anything over your head, but everything does sound wider in the front stage. So if you don't have this hooked up to an external audio setup, the built-in speakers are more than sufficient. A lot of these new USTs have really good tone mapping now. Here's the horses from the Spears and Munsell disc with the tone mapping turned off. It looks totally blown out with the horses looking as if they're floating in blank space. With tone mapping turned on, we can now make out all the bright detail in the snow and the trees in the background. It looks the best in the 1000 nit demo, and as the brightness goes up, it does have a harder time keeping the highlight details intact. It's still there, but not quite as good as the lower nit demos. HDR10 Plus takes it up a notch with even better tone mapping, keeping a lot more of the highlight and shadow details intact, while Dolby Vision does the best with this demo. The bright preset has the more contrasty look, while I think dark is the most balanced amongst the three. The other big feature is the laser dimming. This will adjust the laser's brightness according to how bright or dark the scene is. It can dim down to enhance black levels or brighten up for the brighter scenes and everything else in between. For the past few weeks that I've been using this, I find that whatever setting I had it set to, it was barely noticeable. There were some rare occasions I could see the laser flicker, but it was seamless for the most part. The other feature, which I believe is a first for an ultra short throw projector, is the dynamic iris. This does essentially the same thing as laser dimming, in that it can stop down or open up to darken or brighten up the image depending on what's happening on screen. With the dynamic iris turned off, the picture does look a bit brighter at the expense of black levels looking more gray, while the other two options, the iris has adjusted itself to enhance the blacks. You lose a bit of brightness in the highlights, but the blacks will look so much better. I also noticed that the NexiGo doesn't do full fade to black, meaning when the image has nothing on screen and goes totally dark, neither the laser turns off completely or the iris closes down 100% for zero on-screen light, which would look very similar to an OLED TV. You'll typically get full fade to blacks on much more expensive projectors. Either way, the dynamic iris on the NexiGo worked wonders. Now you will have to find the best overall balance for laser dimming and iris setting to give you the best overall image for your specific setup. I personally find that keeping the iris on the bright mode worked the best in my room, and I would have to say that this has the best blacks of any ultra short throw that I've tried this year. I think it falls short compared to the Hisense L9Q for that bright HDR wow factor, since that one is technically a brighter projector. But for some folks, I could see that having better contrast for a more accurate image could be more important than sheer brightness. Not that the Hisense was bad, it's just that the NexiGo did have better blacks. Another really big thing I noticed, or rather didn't notice, was how good this handled the rainbow effect. Without having a dedicated RBE setting like the Valerian Max, I barely saw any rainbows, and I'm pretty sensitive to seeing it. If I moved my eyes around really fast around the screen, then sure, I can make myself see it. But other than that, I didn't find RBE was a big issue. Now, if you are a 3D fan, this does 3D really good. I do wish it was a little bit brighter, but the image depth didn't have any ghosting, and it's bright enough to make 3D effects stand out without looking dull and flat. Of course, you will need DLP 3D glasses to make this work. As for what's in the box, you'll get a power cord, some documentation, the remote control, and the batteries. Size-wise, it measures 21.5 inches in width, 4.8 inches in height by 16 inches deep. It's rated for 2400 ANSI lumens with a contrast rating of 4000 to 1, with dynamic contrast at over 30,000 to 1. This is a laser DLP projector that uses ALPD 5.0 with the 0.47 chip with XPR shifting technology to provide 4K resolution. Laser lifespan is spec'd at 30,000 hours. It'll cover 107% BT 2020 color and supports Dolby Vision, HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and HLG. It's got 2 woofers and 2 tweeters for a total of 60 watts of onboard audio. Recommended screen size is from 80 inches to 150 inches. This is an excellent performing ultra short throw with the best looking black levels I've seen yet from a DLP projector. The rainbow effect is nearly non-existent to my eyes, and the 3D performance is some of the best I've seen. The colors were fantastic, although in a future Pro Mark III, I would like to see a bump in brightness for those using 150-inch screen sizes. I should also mention that I was using this in my dedicated home theater that has no windows and is totally light controlled. However, if you're using this as a TV replacement in a family room type of setting, NexiGo does offer ALR screens, which you can use in rooms with some ambient lights turned on. This will keep the projector from looking washed out and perform more like a standard TV rather than just a standard projector. They offer this as a bundle if you want to grab the projector and screen together, which could save you some spare change. There will be links down in the video's description if you want some more information. As always guys, thanks for watching, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video.